Before I begin this video, I just want to give my heartfelt condolences to the friends and family of all 50 plus people that were killed in the Orlando, Florida attack at Pulse Nightclub. If you hear the sound of my voice, please accept my condolences and rest in peace to all those who are gone.
The individual believed to be responsible for the terror attack at the Orlando Club Pulse early Sunday morning has been identified as Omar Mateen, age 29, an American citizen born in New York. He died of an exchange of gunfire with police officers early this morning. The FBI first became aware of Mateen in 2013 when he made inflammatory comments to coworkers alleging possible terrorist ties. The FBI thoroughly investigated the matter, including interviews of witnesses, physical surveillance, and records checks. In the course of the investigation, Mateen was interviewed twice. Ultimately, we were unable to verify the substance of his comments, and the investigation was closed. In 2014, Mateen again came to the attention of the FBI because of possible ties to Monar Abu Salah, an American suicide bomber. The FBI conducted an investigation, including an interview with Mateen. We determined that contact was minimal and did not constitute a substantive relationship or a threat at that time. It has been reported that Mateen made calls to 911 this morning in which he stated his allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State.
Another day, another radical Islamic terrorist attack, this time in Orlando, Florida at Pulse Nightclub, which is a gay nightclub. Okay, 50 people were shot and killed by a man named Omar Mateen. Now, Omar Mateen is a citizen, but of course he is a Muslim, and he was born to Afghan parents in the United States. So his parents come from Afghanistan, but he is a U.S. citizen. I think he lived in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Now, this is just my first reaction based on what I've seen in the news, based on what I've seen on social media. I'm sure that I will produce another video to follow up to this one, but this is just my first reaction. Now, I've seen all of the stuff on the news. People are talking about gun control right away. How can gun control fight an ideology? People don't understand what's really going on with radical Islamic terrorism. It's not about just people that are disaffected. It's not about people that just have lost their way. No, radical Islamic terrorism, you have to understand, things like this will continue to happen because this is just in the nature of it. How many attacks do we need to have on U.S. soil before we understand what's going on? We have what has just happened in Orlando. This is the biggest attack since 9/11 and the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. The largest mass shooting in U.S. history. And the thing about it is, this won't come to an end anytime soon because this kind of thing happens all over the Middle East, right? And we see it from the comfort of our own homes here in the United States. We'll see something, a car bombing in Kabul, Afghanistan, or, Iraq. Somebody puts a suicide vest on and goes and blows himself up in the middle of a town square. We see those things and we're like, wow, that's crazy. It happens over there all the time. But then when you have geniuses like Mr. Barack Hussein Obama who say, you know what, let's bring in 10,000 Syrian refugees from a war-torn place to a first world country in the United States. And then we're not going to have any of the violence that they were committing over there or that they were a part of over there. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to say that all Muslims are bad. All Muslims are just evil, hateful people. No. What I'm saying is that there's obviously a problem with radical Islamic terrorism, and it always has been since the beginning. This is why you have walls on the Vatican. This is why Istanbul used to be Constantinople, right? Because you have conquest. Islam is spread by the sword all over the Middle East. North Africa used to be Christian before Muslims came and conquered it. Slavery was started by Muslims in West Africa. Europeans came afterwards and they were the first to end it, even though Muslims still have sub-Saharan black African slaves today in Africa and Mauritania. Fundamental Islam and first world societies don't mix. This is obvious. This happened right now during the holy month of Ramadan. So there is some significance to it. And people say that, oh, Muslims, they're not anti-gay, they're not anti-LGBT. Well, if you say that, then you must don't know too much about Islam. Go to Saudi Arabia right now where you can be killed for being gay. ISIS, what they're doing overseas is they're throwing people off of tall buildings for being gay. And I post a picture right here that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. You see the guys on the right hand side, they're chucking the guy off of a tall building. That guy is probably an alleged homosexual. And the people that are watching, those are just regular citizens that don't see necessarily anything wrong with it. That's the difference between moderate Islam and radical Islam in a place where you have radical Islam allowed to fester. That's the problem. And you're going to bring some of those same people that were in that photo over here and expect for the same thing in that photo to not happen. It doesn't make any sense. Now, in some of the news stories I've seen what appears to be crisis actors. It was a young lady, it was a woman, an older woman, not necessarily an old woman, but like a middle-aged woman. And she was talking about her son. I'm not really sure if her son was missing, if her son had been injured in the shooting or what. But the way she was talking just seemed kind of strange. She was being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. And I'll post that video in the box below so you can check it out in full for yourself. But I just want to talk about it momentarily here. And she was talking, and the way she was talking was just strange. Stephanopoulos was trying to end the interview, and then she would kind of continue. It was like she was halfway crying, but I didn't see any tears. And maybe she did produce some tears, but I did not see them. Now, towards the end of the air quotes interview, she brought up the whole thing about, oh, we got to do something about these assault weapons. See, that's the end game here. A lot of these liberal people, they think that, oh, it's not about the Muslim ideology, which if you go overseas, they'll kill somebody gay right now. What good will gun control do when you're trying to fight an ideology? And what is an assault weapon? What does that really mean? There are no machine guns where you just hold the trigger and the bullets spray. Nobody can get those, right? Unless somehow he just happened to steal something from the federal government, which I doubt happened. So there are no assault weapons like the way people think, like it's just some kind of automatic machine gun that you see in the movies. And even if you were somehow magically able to keep guns out of everyone's hand, what are you going to do about the overall mentality that has inspired the incident? Do you think that this person just happened to go to a gay club out of all the places in the world and kill 50 people simply because it was just a place that was there, a random attack? You don't think it was planned? How do you kill that many people in one place? And it was just one shooter, allegedly. You know, I saw another interview with George Stephanopoulos, and it was a gay guy, I guess, that was at the actual club, and he was giving his account of what happened, and he kind of slipped and said they were shooting. And then Stephanopoulos came in afterwards and was like, well, you know, it was just one guy, right? He was like, oh, yeah, it was just one guy. Now, I don't know if that was a slip where he told the truth about it being more than one person, or if he just actually made a mistake and said they rather than him. I don't know. But my point is, if what has been said by the news is true, you just had one person that was able to kill 50 people. Now, how do you do that if it's not planned, if it's not a target? And what will the response be from the LGBT community, right? What are they going to do? Because I've seen images like you see before you where they're talking about solidarity between LGBT and Islam. But what are they going to do now when you have somebody from the Muslim community that has killed 50 of them in one place, in one night, at a club where they're just going to have a good time, be amongst themselves, party, drink, whatever, and 50 people get killed? How do you really wrap your head around that when you have these people like this that'll say, oh, we're going to have solidarity with them, right? And the whole gun control argument, like I said, is just foolish, because how do you fight against the mentality? How do you fight against the ideology that hates homosexuality to the point where they will throw people off of the top of buildings? How do you fight that with gun control? Because even if for some reason he was able to not have access to any kind of guns, if you can just magically wave a wand and get rid of all the guns, all the avenues to be able to get a gun, from stealing them, from buying them on the street, from buying them in the store, for manufacturing a gun, which can happen. Yes, it can. If you can get rid of all those avenues, what's going to prevent him from manufacturing a IED, an explosive device, and going into the actual place, blowing himself up and still killing people? Because the shooter is also dead. I'm not quite sure if the shooter killed himself after the actual shooting or if the police did, because there was a large police response to this incident. I'm not really sure how he died, but he is dead, and he was a Muslim terrorist. And of course he was a citizen, but my point about bringing up the refugees earlier in my talk is a simple fact that when you have a lot of refugees that come from these violent places and they're allowed into a first world society, that's how people that are regular citizens become radicalized, because you have that mentality coming from over there here, and they communicate with people that are already here, and then it's easy to create radicals that way. It's bad enough with the internet. I mean, you can't stop that on the internet. That's not going to happen. But it's bad enough you have that, but then you have people that actually are in your face, in your neighborhood, and they talk to you. They see you in the grocery store, they see you in the street, they see you in the mall or wherever, and they bring that mentality, which produced the picture of the moderate Islamic people watching the radical Islamic people toss a gay person off of a building, off of a rooftop. They bring that mentality right to your front door, right to your front doorstep. Talk to your son, talk to your daughter, talk to your brother, your friend, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your granddad, your dad, your mom, and people that come from these Islamic places, even if they're one generation removed, a lot of that becomes attractive. And that's how it happens, right? So what Donald Trump said about blocking all the Muslims or putting a momentary pause on the Muslim influx into the country until we could figure out what's going on. I mean, it doesn't seem so crazy now, does it? And also, this guy, Omar Mateen, was on the FBI watch list, if I'm not mistaken. I'm hearing that on the news. I'm not really sure how accurate or inaccurate that news report is, but apparently they were already watching him. So what were they waiting for him to do? I mean, when you're on a watch list, what happens? Somebody said on the news that, oh, if you're on the watch list, you could still get a gun. I mean, anybody can get put on the watch list for any reason. And apparently the watch list didn't do anything in this case because he was still able to go out there and kill 50 people from the gay community. This is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I just wanted to give my thoughts about it right now. I don't have much more to say, but I will come back when I have more information. If they talk to any more crisis actors or whoever wants to come in and try to push their political ideology, I most certainly will speak on that. And that's all I got to say. So what say you? Do you think that this was a planned, obvious attack of radical Islamic terrorism, which has happened before in the United States? Let's talk about 9/11. Let's talk about Fort Hood. Let's talk about all the other places where the same thing has happened. You have maybe one guy, a group of guys, and the whole lone wolf mentality. Oh, he was activated by himself. Come on. He's connected to the hive mind of radical Islamic terrorism. And again, before I close, I just want to say, I'm not talking about all Muslims. I know the overwhelming majority of Muslims are peaceful people, but what we can't ignore is that there is a problem with radical Islamic terrorism that exists. It's there and we got to do something about it. So what say you? Am I on point with my assertion of what's going on, of the facts of radical Islamic terrorism, or am I missing something? Do you think it was a false flag situation to try and push gun control? Whatever your opinion about the situation is, whatever your theory about what happened and why it happened is, just let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
But it's devastating when you see how many people lost their life and just the impact it's going to have on their families. I've got kids and grandkids. You can't imagine.